I'm Cierra Bettens. Welcome to APTN News InFocus. Look, we've all made decisions that we regret later in life. For most of us, they're hidden, our own little secrets. But for others, it's a very public message about where they once were in their lives. I'm talking about tattoos. There's a message in that skin ink. And some people who have been in gangs, prison, or have been victims of violence want those messages removed. That's what attracted APTN's Tamara Pimentel to Mother Ink, a tattoo removal service in Winnipeg that helps people part with ink from a darker chapter in their lives.
Billy Kozub's face tells a story. Tattoos from a life forged in the streets. It's a constant reminder of a dark time filled with gang violence and addiction. A past she wants to erase.
I really want to change my life, but every time I look in the mirror, I just see that old me. Even if I'm walking on the street, that's something you look at with other people. You see a face tattoo, you're right away wondering who they're with, or are they going to have problems or whatever.
That's a snippet from Skin Deep, an APTN Investigates episode written and produced by Tamara, who joins me now. Tamara, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So to start, I'm wondering, can you tell us a bit about where the idea for the story originated and what made you want to dig deeper?
So I was working on a previous story, and it was recommended that I speak with Della Stanky, who does free tattoo removals for people wanting to exit violence or the gang life or all sorts of situations. When she was talking to me about her story, I just thought, this has to be its own story. It can't just be a side piece of another story. And she was talking to me a lot about some of the women that she services. And I just thought, like so many of these women have really interesting stories to tell. Their tattoos itself has so many stories to tell. So she actually connected me with 3 of the women that get their tattoos removed by her.
And can you tell us a bit more about Della? So she's the owner of Mother Ink. But I'm curious to know, what is the work that she does and what's her mission in doing that work?
Yeah, so Della runs Mother Ink. Mother Ink is a nonprofit project that offers free tattoo removals to people wanting to exit the gang life, wanting to exit, violence. And that's where they get a lot of these tattoos from. A lot of these tattoos stem from that. So she used to work at a halfway house, and she was hearing from a lot of the men there that, they're scared to leave the house because they have these gang tattoos on their faces. And so she had the idea to remove their tattoos for free. It led to more people wanting their tattoos removed. So now she actually has a shop in the West End, but she also takes her tattoo removal machine into the prisons here just outside of Winnipeg and offers those services to people that are going to be released, that don't want to go back onto the streets and get jumped, or maybe, those tattoos prevent them from getting a job, an apartment, or any other kind of services. And yeah, so that's where that kind of stemmed from.
And so when you were talking to your sources, how did they describe the relationship between their tattoos and their past?
So I interviewed 3 women, Billis, Sarah, and Michelle. And all 3 of them have tattoos for various reasons. For Billy, she has a gang-affiliated tattoo on her forehead that, again, was preventing her from moving forward with her life without judgment. For Michelle, she had tattoos that she got through a sexual violent act. And for Sarah, Sarah was actually convicted of manslaughter. and her co-accusers' names were tattooed into her arms while she was in jail. So it was jail ink made of soot and pencil crayon used with a handmade gun. And in order for her to move on as well, she wanted to get those tattoos removed.
Mm-hmm. And one of the women, I think it was Billy, in the story described the removal as
getting these removed. It's kind of like shedding snakeskin. Like, I'm leaving that lifestyle behind, and I know people
shedding snakeskin. And I'm wondering if you could talk a bit more about how the tattoo removal process has helped these women heal and move forward.
Yeah, so that was my favorite quote from Billy. It just explained a lot of what that means to her to get those tattoos removed. For her, it's leaving that life behind and starting fresh and not feeling ashamed. It gives her confidence to, go in and actively get those tattoos removed. But aside from that, Della's shop also offers a place where they can go and hang out, if they're having a bad day and they have to go get their tattoo removed. Della is just the perfect person to go in and rent to, share a story with, somebody that you can trust. And she also offers other services there. She collects donations. So if you need any of that sort of thing. So it's not just the tattoo removal itself. That's definitely the reasoning behind it and the story behind it. But going there and getting that tattoo removal is very much a safe space for all of these women as well.
Watching this episode, we get a sense that there's a greater story behind these tattoos. And I'm wondering if you could talk a bit more about why it was important to give viewers more context on the overrepresentation of Indigenous women in the criminal justice system and, the lack of support that they receive when they exit corrections or they're exiting gang life.
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, these tattoos often come with a lot of judgment. It's important for women to feel like, when they come out of prison, they can access supports and move on with their lives and get jobs. And, they're basically starting fresh. All three of these women have been in and out of the provincial prison here in Headingley. And each one told me that when you get out, it's just so hard. You want to turn your life around and you want to, you just want to become a different person, but you can't because there's not a lot of supports out there. All three of these women told me that when they were released from the provincial prison, they were dropped off at a bus stop in Unicity. That's just on the outskirts of the city, on the west end of the city. And they wouldn't know what to do from there. They would be given change, they'd be given a bus ticket, and they would be dropped off there. They wouldn't know where to go. A lot of them, they don't have that family support to have somebody safe to go to. So they end up going back into the same area, to the same houses, back with the same people. And it's just an ongoing cycle. They end up doing the same things again. They end up getting caught, back in prison, then back at the bus stop. Sarah, I know when she was in federal and she was being transported to go to court, she said a lot of times they were dropping women off there. So that was very much a common story that came from all three of them. So that's something that I really wanted to touch on the documentary. Just where can those women access supports? Because a lot of them don't know how to ask for help. They're too ashamed. Their tattoos play a lot into that too, as to why they're so ashamed to go up and ask for help. So these women really wanted to get their stories out there so they can help other people in that situation.
And from a reporter's perspective, what did you learn from producing Skin Deep and interviewing people about their lives and their tattoos and their experiences?
Oh, there's so much I wanted to add to the story that I couldn't, just because we have a certain amount of time. What I learned is just, how big of a story it is. It's one tattoo, but I can go on about it for, I could do a whole documentary on each tattoo. There's such a big story behind each one. And for the women to come forward to me and tell me that, Della said you wanted to speak with women, I would like to be one of those women you speak to. They're just so brave to come to me and want to tell their story, and I really commend them for that. We can't do these stories without people wanting to speak up and people wanting to share their stories, so that really meant a lot for me. I really wanted to get a woman's perspective to these tattoos and to gangs, because a lot of the times you only hear from men. So it was really brave of them to come forward and want to speak about that.
Absolutely. The only other question I have is, where can people watch the episode?
You can watch it on aptnnews.ca, and you can also watch it on YouTube. And it's also linked on Facebook as well.
Perfect. Yeah, Tamara, thanks so much for joining us and giving our listeners a bit of a closer look at this episode.
Thank you.
This episode was produced by Mark Blackburn and edited by Jesse Andrushko. Charmaine Straker is the executive producer of APTN News InFocus. If you're enjoying the show, let us know by leaving a rating and review. And if you have any comments or ideas, email us at infocus@aptn.ca. You can find more APTN podcasts like APTN News Brief and Truth in Politics on your favorite player. I'm Cierra Bettens. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next week.
I'm Kathleen Martins, a reporter with APTN News. Homeless, houseless, shelterless people aren't hard to find in Winnipeg, a city of about 1 million in the middle of the prairies. They're on sidewalks, in bus shelters, and down alleyways. They're living in tents and squatting in empty buildings. They're even sleeping in abandoned cars. But who are they?
This building here it's pretty awesome because a lot of the relatives know that if they ever need anything, they can come there and get clothes or food or.
I like that you call them relatives.
Well, we're all related in a sense, right?
Downtown Safety Patrol Manager Vinnie Lilly is referring to the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people who make up more than half of the city's homeless population. They come from rural and remote communities. Find out why and hear their stories in a new 5-part APTN News podcast with me called Our Relatives.